But if he's talking about reconciliation and all this, then why is his own minister denying all these things, as well as his own prison minister behaving like this? The attempt of the High Commissioner, Arun, you have to understand, is to get the country to a process. That's the agenda. The government itself is rejecting everything that is there. It's like a blind wall, basically saying, we don't accept any assistance from outside. Sri Lanka needs assistance.
Professor Asanga, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Professor, now after this oral submission of UN High Commissioner, there are two kind of feedback from among the Tamil community. One side welcome the report, her statement, and other side express disappointment. What is your take on this report? Especially, they say compared to March statement, this time a kind of a tone down in her statement. What is your take on this?
I don't first see it as a tone down oral submission. I see because she has clearly mentioned whatever she has mentioned is absolutely correct on the broadening of the repression that is going on in the country. What our researchers could find from January, we have interviewed civil society activists, various other key stakeholders. We keep a close eye on what's happening in Sri Lanka. So, and the society. There is a serious question on moral gravity, liberal decency, structural issues. There is no answers for reconciliation. The process is missing. So absolutely, the High Commissioner is correct. She uses terms as broadening of the repression, which is absolutely correct. And this is the same thing that we captured. So, Sri Lanka is under serious international scrutiny, and the regime keeps denying. It's a denial, complete denial, saying that it would polarize the country much more, the society. But no, I can't agree with the foreign minister on that. It wouldn't polarize. There is no solution. I know many countries have come forward to assist Sri Lanka, such as India and United States, many others. But unfortunately, the regime's ultra-nationalist political ethos overshadows everything else.
For the past 12 years, Sri Lanka is on the agenda of UNHRC. After repeated failure upon multiple promises, do you think still the international community is believing in Sri Lanka's promises, or they just for the diplomatic courtesy they noted down or welcome these steps in the statements?
No, the statement is not a reduction from the. I don't see she has reduced her tone. It is the same tone. This is the oral submission, but the written submission will be in a few months' time. The international community, obviously, European Union, you can see from the GSP, they would look at Sri Lanka as a serious issue because the PTA is not being looked at. So many things. From March, the radicalization, the act and trying to bring in doing multiple arrests, extrajudicial arrests. These are serious concerns that's going on, targeting journalists, so all that. The attempt of the High Commissioner, Arun, you have to understand, is to get the country to a process. That's the agenda. Not keep criticizing what's going on, but also to find an avenue, a path towards how do you get this started. So I think her approach is correct, definitely. What the international support, of course, Sri Lanka would have, but the international support the Sri Lankan government should accept. But the problem is a clear rejection that's going on right now. So this is
Uh,
really unfortunate.
Sir, here I would like to ask this question. Like Sri Lanka, you being the head of the former head of the security think tank, you stated in couple of your interviews that you have prepared a policy for about national security, but that they haven't implemented it or not looked upon it. Similarly, do we have Sri Lanka has a foreign policy in place? Oh, because what I see when it comes to UNHRC, uh, ju- just just few weeks before the UNHRC only, there are so much of activities happening in Sri Lanka. Last August 30th, International Day of Disappeared People, there was a Zoom meeting happened. Just before the Zoom meeting, only to make the announcement, they have reactivated the Twitter account, which has been inactive for more than 1 year. Similarly, other social media sites also same. So it is only to counter, or this time there's a, do you think a genuine change happened, or they are genuinely committed to do something to alleviate the sufferings of the people, or what is your take on this?
No, definitely, we are going on knee-jerk policy reaction. So whatever the there's an issue, then you come up with a solution. So that's not the way forward. Of course, you need a policy directive, long-term, what needs to be done. So you need to look at the longer-term horizon. That's the reason, yeah, that you have national defense policies or foreign policies written. The reason what we did was for 3 years, 3.5 years actually, we worked on a national defense policy, capturing what needs to be done to capturing the threats to the country, multiple areas that the country should be focused on. It's a very important document done by distinguished military officers from all three forces, and also researchers. So, but the unfortunate thing is that from government to government, you take different policies. You hide the book. Now the book is missing, so I don't know where the book is, but the book is somewhere there. So unfortunately, now even for foreign policy, we don't have a coherent, consistent foreign policy. That's why I always say have a balanced foreign policy. But how can you have a balanced foreign policy? Now, yesterday I heard that Sri Lanka has supported China on the Xinjiang matter, on the human rights issues. So the its foreign secretary keep on saying there is nothing wrong with Xinjiang, and we should support China. I mean, so how would you balance when you make statements like this? None of our foreign secretaries have spoken like that in the past. But this is an unfortunate. That's why I say the bandwagoning policies. Uh, we will not be able to project our balanced, the neutral policy. It's written that the president would follow a balanced policy. And also there is a document apparently that is available with 20 points. Again, which I have still not have not seen it. It's not made available to the public. These things should be made available. It should be discussed with the general public, academia. You should look at long-term horizon, because what you have is a dangerous situation, Arun. I mean, it is not something, it's red flag. I have basically spoken about it multiple times. This is the duty that I can do for my own country. The heavy militarization that is going on, and it is serious. You have 28 now, right? I mean, with the recent appointment. So you don't want to end up becoming Myanmar, and this is a serious concern. And because the when you don't have clear cut policies, and when you don't work on those policies, then you end up doing knee jerk reactions, or becoming very answering to whatever the issues that is there in whatever the form. So what's lacking is that, but the High Commissioner is also saying where is the process that is going on. So I mean, what the Foreign Minister saying, that whatever the actions of the Human Rights Commission would polarize. No, I think in the reverse way, because whatever the actions that they are taking, they have already taken has polarized already the community. So this is not the, of course, the mentality of the majority, the Sinhalese Buddhists, which they want some sort of solution. We have gone through, a terrible past. I mean, we know what our past is: two youth insurrections, 30 years of war. So don't we need policies, a policy document? Why? I mean, from whatever the respective regime that comes into power, so the policy prescription should continue.
Professor Asanga, I would like to ask this question. I want to take you back a few months ago. You have mentioned in one of your social media posts that said when you met a US diplomat, they have warned about what are the possible repercussions for Sri Lanka in the future. Then later they came up with a sanction, the travel sanction on a couple of ex-military personnel. Now, uh, with the continuation of the UNHRC resolution and the continuing absence of implementing the promises they have Sri Lanka made to the international community, what what is the future for Sri Lanka, especially because I can remember once former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca mentioned in the parliament, because of government's inactivity, or they are not acting with sincerity, the military, only military is uh, suffering from that, as a consequence military is suffering. He cannot visit America because of that. Several other military officers also facing the similar fate. So now, what will happen in the international fora after, if the government continue to only make taking steps, knee jerk reactions rather than concrete actions? What will happen?
Well, I mean, what you referred to was my interaction with the U.S. Diplomat. That was Alice Wells sometime back.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
Yes, it was several years ago. But I mean, what they try to do is, of course, help Sri Lanka. Not only the U.S. diplomats, but also the diplomats in the European Union, especially. Now, yesterday I was at a call with the French think tank, talking on where is it they are really concerned. So they would like to work with the Sri Lankan government, help and assist. Even during my visits to Brussels, many diplomats would like to help, but they're given multiple warnings on the situation, what's going on. They're really disturbed about now. Just imagine once this is now the news on the prison minister's behavior is printed everywhere. In the morning, I have so many emails regarding this. It's printed on the New York Times. It's everywhere. This sort of behavior. I mean, he's apparently he's been removed from prisons, but then he keeps other portfolios. I mean, it's not acceptable. So this is where the problem is, Arun. I mean, you and I can talk for a long time on these issues. I mean, if you keep on militarizing, there's a brilliant government I mean, bureaucracy in Sri Lanka. Civils, the trust. There's a significant trust deficit between the executive and the bureaucracy. That's why the executive keeps on appointing the military as the last resort. And we have seen in our case studies, countries like Pakistan, or like, from the Eighth Amendment, Ziaul Haq, we have seen in Myanmar how it drifts towards a militarized regime. So once it happens, it's pretty hard to get it back. I mean, you could see everything as national security, and everything is under. I mean, the USMCC agreement was a national security threat. The East Container Terminal was a national security threat. So everything you can see as a national security threat, and even a person, a journalist who's speaking about the Chinese vaccine could be a national security threat. So everybody can be seen as a national security. So this is wrong. And this is not the way forward. There is no, as a progressive country, where we need to create one Sri Lanka with all the minorities, minority concerns. Now, if you look at the Muslim community, there was the burqa ban, the madrasa restrictions that is going on. Then also the forced cremation that was there. But then when they came up with the solution, of course, it was too late. But the damage has already happened. So what I'm saying is that you need some concrete solutions, some long-term solutions, rather than it's not about individual military officers. It's about the entire the respect of the military establishment. So you need to sort of look at it, law and order. You can see the detentions as well as on the protesters that's been happening, how the COVID environment was taken as an advantage, to suppress democracy, or certain bills that was passed in the parliament within 30 days to give extra jurisdictional powers to special economic zones. So I mean, they are not discussed between the civil society, the academia. This is really unfortunate. And the people who voted for this government, are now speaking about these. What the problem here, I identify, the voter base in Sri Lanka is more of a rejectionist voter base. You want to reject somebody, but you don't see, not because you support the other person who you wish to work, but it's a rejection. So, again, you would see a rejection, but then it's time now, for people like the journalists as well as the academia to speak about the next, what sort of leadership that you require, not to be a rejectionist. The government itself is rejecting everything that is there. It's like a blind wall, basically saying, we don't accept any assistance from outside. Sri Lanka needs assistance. The Sri Lanka's own cardinal is asking for assistance from outside now. So everybody is asking. So then they are asking, the international community is asking, you are the one who was asking for assistance. You see, so there's a mismatch in the policy directive, whatever they are taking. So then you're trying to say, look, we don't need any assistance. The Sri Lankan process of reconciliation should have been beautifully designed by the civil society itself. They have a lot of experience. It would have been a really good case. But unfortunately, from regime to regime, you start changing the policy directives. Which that's why I mentioned in one of my pieces. There's 4 foreign ministers go to Geneva and say 4 different things. So the Geneva is confused. So one says we want to withdraw, one says we want to stay back, one says the hybrid is good, other one is saying no, the hybrid is not. So why didn't you get your act together? Seriously, well, it's a national issue. In Sri Lanka, the problem is that you don't speak on these. There is no forum on the national to talk about the national concerns, putting aside politics. Now, this could be the serious issue that we are having going through on the economy also. Somebody wants to go into the IMF package, another one doesn't want to go into the IMF package. So you have a governor who's supposed to advise the government, but also a politician from the government now resigned. But then again, the policy prescription of Rajapaksa, he won't be able to put it down. He won't be able to say, no, this is wrong, this is the way forward. So this is what the problem is. Even Professor Geopolitics won't be able to do that. You can see that from his statement, saying that, look, this is the way forward. It's not there.
We have a Facebook comment from senior journalist Iswaran Ratnam. Interesting to note that the government is giving the impression that it is having genuine engagement with civil society when it is not. But I am also keen to understand what efforts the civil society is making to build bridges among the communities. And can you answer this question? Both can answer the question.
Eastern's of course right. There is the space has shrunk. That's where the problem is. So what we could see as researchers is there is no space for the civil society. When there is no space, how can the civil society? there's significant of surveillance going on, the scrutiny, it's serious. How does the civil society function? So there is a serious issue for the non-governmental organizations, to all of them to function. And the critiques, obviously, so every critique you cannot say that he's against the national agenda or the national, seeing it as a national security. So the space has to be there. The space has to be created. The problem is, most of the nations that want to help Sri Lanka speaks about, is there space? That's the first question they ask, because the complaints that have gone from the civil society actors are legitimate. The space is missing. So you want to talk about, reconciliation and all that, but then the space should be there, and the freedom for the civil society actors.
Okay. Finally, I want to ask you this question. Despite all the shortcomings, there's a belief among some sector of the Sri Lankan politician or the government that despite all the shortcomings, still the world will embarrass them, or they will definitely support Sri Lanka because of the geopolitical that location. So do you think that is the case, that maybe with all these shortcomings, still Sri Lanka will be welcomed by the top nations amid all these problems?
Geopolitics definitely plays a very high note, but unfortunately, our society does not speak much on that, and does not, dwell much on it, and does not see the in depth of what's going on. The location of Sri Lanka is, of course, important, but then again, if you look at the geopolitics right now, it's serious. China's got a role right now with the U.S. exit in South Asia. To demonstrate its leadership. This is the initial step that China has got. So if China keeps on, in its initial step on its leadership, starts, supporting dysfunctional governments. If it start, how does China even support when you have a government, for example, a minister of prisons who's drunk and all that? So what would China do? So you cannot support certain, there should be some norms, international norms and values. So this is a test case for China. That's how I see with the US exit from Afghanistan. So how does China respond, and is really important on all these areas. Not to make the statements coming in saying that, we support your human rights and you support our. That was the statement by the Minister of Defense. Of course, I never expected that's all, but that's what he said. These things have to change. Geopolitics, depending on geopolitics, and India, it's obviously India wants, some good to happen. For we've been talking about devolution of power, all this for a long time. So, but there is no tangible results.
Finally, amid all the darkness, or there's a saying that when you are traveling through the dark tunnel, there will be silver light. What Sri Lanka need to do in order to find a way out, to be a democratic society? What Sri Lanka make a change at this junction?
Well, I think Sri Lanka would need to look at do some serious structural adjustments. You are looking at the foundational, the factors that some of the the society believes. It has been propagated by by political agendas. So you would need to look at long-term solutions. You would need to, you cannot reject everything that is coming from external or assistance that is coming in. Human Rights Commissioner's statement is a valid statement. So you need to work with the international norms, rule of law, democracy. It's really important. Sri Lanka is a rich democratic country. It cannot lose to certain events that's taking place by certain regimes. So its civil society is really strong. It's trying its level best to correct the situation. And I mean, there's a lot of international assistance. So the government should not go on a a rejectionist for taking a rejectionist position. You're moving a quasi. I mean, you have a quasi democracy right now, unfortunately, and it's moving to a semi-autocratic. I mean, I use the term now semi-autocratic because every time I use, I'm very sad to use that term. Sri Lanka has never been a semi-autocratic country. So although the elections are there and on time, and we have the presidential election and all that, but the institutions are very weak in the country. So to support reconciliation, peace building, there is tremendous work, excellent work done by Dr. Parkasoti, Gihan Pereira, many others. I mean, in the civil society, I've seen so many brilliant champions who can, advise and take this forward. But unfortunately, they are not taken forward. I remember one time we had a workshop with the South African TRC, the Truth and Regulation Commission, some of the members in Sri Lanka, where Dr. Jehan Pera was also present. And so there are a lot of lessons that Sri Lanka can learn. It can design its own mechanism. But I cannot be happy with what has happened for the last 10 years on, delaying this process, as well as not having any tangible results. So politicizing for their own benefits. So, I mean, you see a serious suppression of the minority community. So I think we need to work on a more progressive path.